This past weekend, there was a rally on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. to protest the nomination of Judge Neil Gorsuch. It was part of a national campaign called the People's Defense. Democratic Senator Mazie Hirano, a member of the Judiciary Committee, was among the speakers. This is 50 Minutes.
I saw that, yes.
Everyone, please welcome to the stage ILYSE HOGUE, president of NARAL Pro-Choice America.
Good morning, Washington! We are joined by cities all over the country today who are getting together to say one loud message of we object. We object. We object to Trump's agenda. We object to the people he is putting in place to do nothing but assert his agenda. And we certainly object to a lifetime appointment of a justice put in place by a president under investigation for collusion with Russia. We object, we object, we object. Now, let me tell you a little story. I was sitting in the hearing of Neil Gorsuch a couple weeks ago when my phone started going off, and it was my staff telling me that Jim Comey had just confirmed that President Trump was currently under investigation with Russia. I could not believe in that moment that the same Senate who had said our President Obama was not legitimate to nominate a Supreme Court justice was moving forward with hearings for someone who was under investigation from Russia. And that was just the last reason, the very last reason we needed to object to Neil Gorsuch for a lifetime appointment. We know he's terrible on women's rights. We know he's terrible on workers' rights. We know he's terrible on voting rights. We know he's terrible on LGBT rights. And we know that what runs through every single one of his decisions is a characteristic that we cannot have, and that characteristic is a lack of compassion, a lack of ability to understand our lives, and certainly a lack of ability to judge our destinies. So we will not have it. We do object. And here with us today, we have one of the very first courageous senators who came out to stand with the people. She is on the Senate Judiciary Committee. She asked the hard questions. She made Neil Gorsuch squirm in his seat. She put his feet to the fire, and she has now said not only will she vote against this judge, but she is going to stand with the people and filibuster his nomination. Please welcome to the stage Senator Mazie Hirano from the great state of Hawaii.
Aloha, everybody. So how many of you watched all 4 days of the Gorsuch hearings? I have to hand it to you guys. You know, after what we refer to as the event, and we kind of had to, oh my gosh, right, what happened? The event being the election, in case you didn't know. We call it, some of us call it the event. And as we decided, what the heck is going to happen to our country? What happened was, the very next day after the inauguration, you had the March on Washington. And that started with a retired attorney on Maui. Did you know that? Her name is Teresa Shook. And she used social media, and within a day, 10,000 people had said, we're going to do something, and all across the country and all over the world. And this activism, this engagement has not stopped since. And it's because of you guys and all of us who have worked with you and are with you that we stopped Trump Care. And the person who was the Labor Secretary nominee dropped out. I have heard from more of my constituents in the time that the president has been in office. We're now in month 3 than in the entire years that I've served in the House and Senate. And I had something like, for Hawaii, my gosh, 4,000, 5,000 communications on Betsy DeVos is a lot. And then I have this wonderful group of activists that come to my office in Hawaii every Tuesday to make sure that I am staying the course with you guys. So thank you so much. And a couple of weeks ago, I did a video chat with them. And you know what we do in Hawaii is we say we talk story, meaning that we don't yell at each other, we listen to each other. It's a wonderful way that we frame when we get together. We say, let's talk story about this. And so going forward on Neil Gorsuch, yes, when I met with him, he said a couple of things. I think he told all of us that he met with that he has a heart. And we were really looking for that heart in the 4 days of hearings. He told me that the federal courts are there to support minority rights. He, of course, did not respond to any of our questions that allowed us to figure out what his judicial philosophy is. And that is really important, because if judicial philosophy were not important, we wouldn't have all these 4-5 or 5-4 decisions. It's because the judges, the Supreme Court justices, bring their entire life experience and what their frame of reference would be based on their life experiences. And so he needed to tell us what his judicial philosophy was, and he wouldn't. And he basically just said, I am going to follow precedent. He is going to the court that actually sets precedent. So we looked at his record, and what I saw was a disturbing trend where he'll support corporate interests over individual rights. And you know the litany of cases, Hobby Lobby, where suddenly, you know, we expanded the religious rights of a company and their owners over the thousands and thousands of women who worked for Hobby Lobby, or the case where a person got electrocuted and he didn't think that the company should be held responsible for not training this person, or the case of the truck driver who had the choice between freezing to death and doing something about it. He didn't think that that truck driver had made the right decision. So this is not the man who is standing for all of us. And so I asked a lot of questions. All of us did, the Democrats did. And I have to say that as you were listening to and watching the Republicans, many of them were asking him, hey, how's fishing? Could you believe it? You know, this is serious business. This is a person who's going to be on the Supreme Court for decades, making decisions that will impact all of our lives. So we need somebody who truly will, you know, adhere to separation of the powers. Serious questions about what he's going to do with Roe v. Wade. That was one of the president's litmus tests. He is the guy for the Federalist Society and the what is the other group? Heritage Foundation, 17 million spent. There are people who say, if you can't support this guy, who they're pushing forward as this really nice person with the heart, which we couldn't really find, that who would we support? And I say, hey, yes, Merrick Garland, and also somebody who's not the person from the Heritage Foundation list, somebody who's going to represent all of us. So I want to thank you all for your activism. It makes a difference what you're doing. The kind of engagement makes a huge difference to us. Believe me, when the folks come to visit my office every Tuesday, and when we hear from thousands of you all across the country, it keeps me going. It keeps me going, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you do. And let me just leave you with one more thought. You know, as we care about LGBTQ rights, as we care about voting rights, as we care about a right of a woman to choose, a lot of these cases that will go to the Supreme Court comes from the states. We have to pay attention to who gets elected to the state legislatures. We have to pay attention to who become our governors, because all of these cases emanate from the states. So I know you're going to be out there all across the country making sure that you're electing the right kind of people to the state legislatures and to the governor's office, because I think sometimes we don't pay enough attention to that. So mahalo nui loa, as we say in Hawaii, aloha. It is a beautiful day and you all are beautiful people. Thank you so much. Aloha.
Please welcome to the stage Rio Tazwell from People for the American Way.
Excuse me. All right, how we doing this morning? All right. Fired up, ready to stop Gorsuch. Yeah. My name's Rio Tazwell. I'm a campaign manager for People for the American Way. And I'm happy to be here today on behalf of our more than 1 million members across the country who are proud to be part of a broad coalition of progressive allies pushing back against the extreme and dangerous agenda of Donald Trump. And in particular, to oppose the nomination of Judge Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. I'm also here today to share a personal story about an experience that nearly brought my life to an early end. In 2011, while traveling for work in Asheville, North Carolina, I found myself caught in a house fire. As the building quickly went up in flames and smoke, I realized that my only chance of escape and survival was to climb out onto the roof and jump from the 3rd floor. I fractured my spine in 4 places, broke every rib on the left side of my body, punctured my left lung, collapsed my right lung, shattered my left shoulder, and suffered several other serious injuries. I then laid in a ditch for 2 hours, completely paralyzed from the neck down, but fully conscious, waiting for the firefighters to find me. Fortunately, I did make a full recovery, and in some ways, I'm perhaps stronger now than maybe I ever was before. But were it not for the Affordable Care Act, I would not have had health insurance and been on the hook for hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical expenses at the tender age of 23. At the time, I was working for a startup nonprofit that was able to pay me a small salary, but unable to provide health insurance. But since I was under 26, I was able to be covered on my parents' plan. Yeah, all right. And today, thankfully, I'm debt-free and amazingly pain-free. Now, fortunately, last week, the Republicans failed in their attempt to repeal the Affordable Care Act, at least for now. But the fact that so many of our elected leaders are comfortable with millions of people living drastically diminished lives in debt or losing their lives altogether because of the lack of affordable and accessible health care in this country is really outrageous and truly a travesty. We need a Supreme Court justice who will stand with the people, not special interests. We need a Supreme Court justice who isn't beholden to special interests and will do the right thing when difficult cases comes before him or her. And we need a Supreme Court justice that will look out for those that are most vulnerable among us, including 23-year-olds who almost die because of extreme events like house fires. Judge Neil Gorsuch is not that justice, and the Senate should reject his confirmation. It's on all of us to let our Democratic senators know that we want them to hold the line on this filibuster next week, like our lives depend on it. Because you really never know when that might prove to be true. Thank you.
Please welcome Farouk Mitta, Muslim community activist.
Good morning. It's so great to stand here with all of you in opposition to Neil Gorsuch's nomination to the Supreme Court. We have to use every legal tool at our disposal to oppose this illegitimate administration of Donald Trump. We did it when they tried to pass Trump Care. We did it when they tried to do the Muslim ban, and now we've got to do it again to oppose this Supreme Court nominee. I want to just really quickly talk about the Muslim ban. When Donald Trump signed his executive order, there were Muslim Americans across the country who were afraid. They felt like they didn't belong here, that they weren't wanted in this country. And they're still afraid till today. But these are people that have contributed to this country as doctors, as police officers, as firefighters who served our country, entrepreneurs who started businesses and created jobs, people who were born and raised here, who are US citizens, and they felt unwanted. My own family members called me asking me, Farouk, should we travel outside of the country? If I leave and go to Mexico or Europe or somewhere just for a vacation, are they gonna let me back in? That's not the America that I was raised in. Those are not our values. The reason I bring that view up is because the judiciary is so important to our balance of power. All of the people in my community, the Muslim American community, who were afraid, when we saw the Ninth Circuit decision to halt the Muslim ban, it showed not only our country but the world that our system works. And right now, the judiciary is the one branch of government that's got our back, that is standing up for the rights, and that's calling out these policies for what they are, as racist, as hate-mongering, and as xenophobic. They went back. Donald Trump went back, and he tried to do it again, and he tried to make it pretty. And then we saw again from Hawaii that the Muslim ban was shot down again. So I just want everyone to remember that. And to remember that it's not even just about the Muslim ban. This is a nominee that has allied himself with Donald Trump, who stands with Trump and who's shown that he's not willing to separate politics from his work. When we have such issues where this administration is trying to strip millions of people from their health care coverage, they're trying to break apart families with their immigration policies, and they're going out against working class people and making false promises about jobs that they know they don't have the ability to bring back. So this is a great, important time in our history. Thank you all for being here, and let's work together to stop this nomination.
Please welcome Ronna Epting and Megan Faulkner from Every Voice.
Good morning, DC. Thank you everyone for coming this morning. I'm Ronna Epting with Every Voice.
And I'm Megan Faulkner with Every Voice. We fight for a democracy that works for everyone, not just the wealthy. Woo! I've got one question for you. Do we need more money in our elections? No! I didn't think so. But Neil Gorsuch does not agree with us. Over and over, he has sided with the wealthy and powerful. He thinks corporations are people, and he would go even further than Citizens United, and he supports ending all contribution limits in our elections.
Oh, that's me. On every single thing we care about, Gorsuch will give the wealthy and powerful even more power. It's crazy. He'll make it harder for our voices to matter in our elections, and he'll make it easier for billionaires to spend millions more and to influence our elections. This is a direct affront to our American values. This means dirty energy companies can buy the policies they want to pollute our air, endanger our climate. It means Wall Street can spend millions to go back to the reckless policies that crashed this economy.
Yeah. If he's confirmed to the Supreme Court, we know that he is going to side with corporations and billionaires, not us. Is that what we want? No! That's why we cannot let him get a lifetime seat on the Supreme Court, and why we're here today to tell senators to oppose Gorsuch.
We deserve a democracy that works for every single one of us, not just the wealthy and powerful. Let's keep the pressure up. This week is the week. Call your senators. Have your friends and family call their senators. We can't leave any stone unturned. This is our fight. This is a lifetime seat. Together, if we work together, we can stop the corporate takeover of the Supreme Court and our democracy. Thank you.
Please welcome GREISA Martinez Rosas from United We Dream.
Good morning, buenos dias, how are you doing? It is an absolute honor to be with you today. My name is GREISA Martinez Rosas. I am undocumented, unafraid, and here to stay. You know, this election season and the days after the election and the months have been difficult. Who remembers where they were exactly when they announced the results? Yes. At that moment, I was sort of in a room full of women, undocumented women, that were ready to figure out how do we win immigration reform in a Hillary Clinton administration. And in a moment of deep pain, we had to bring those women together and say, you know, it's actually going to be a much different moment than we thought. And the mothers sort of went around and they each said like what they were feeling in the moment. And some of them said, I'm scared. Some of them said, what's going to happen to me and my kids? But one woman, Senora Betty from Florida, she's been part of United We Dream. And United We Dream is the largest immigrant youth network in the country. And she said, I want to pray for him. I want to pray for Donald Trump. I want to pray that God gives him wisdom. Unfortunately, I know that her prayers have been answered, but not that one in specifically. So we know that this guy Gorsuch, he is part of the racist administration that this man, Donald Trump, wants to take us into. And make no mistake, undocumented people all across the country will suffer if this man is in the Supreme Court. 11 million people right now are facing the most horrible attacks. And, you know, I was just thinking about Daniel from Washington State. He is a DACA recipient that has been unjustly detained for more than a month in Washington State because the ICE has decided that they want to take over his life and they want to eject him from this country. And people like Gorsuch maybe one day will have to make a decision whether someone like me has the right to be able to come out and speak, to be able to say that I'm undocumented and unafraid. And if it's up to him, I don't think I'll be able to do it. And so, you know, in this moment of uncertainty, I know that people like you, people of conscience, are going to stand with me, with 11 million people, that we're going to help answer Senora Betty's prayers when she says, I want to feel safe. And so, you know, I think that in this moment, we have to both ground ourselves in what we want, what we're opposing in this moment, which is Gorsuch, which is the racist Trump agenda, which is an agenda of mass deportation. We oppose that loudly and clearly. We object. And at the same time, we're looking forward to the future that we will create together. A future where I will be able to stand here without fear and continue to declare that I am undocumented. A future where Senora Betty doesn't have to pray for the safety of her kids. She just knows that it's going to happen. A future where women will be able to choose whatever they want to do with their bodies. That we will be able to defend people's ability to marry whoever they want to marry. I believe in that future. United We Dream believes in that future, and we will not back down because we are going forward together, not one step back. Repeat after me. Forward together. Not one step back. Forward together. Not one step back. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Ann Bailey from NARAL.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for being here. It's wonderful to be here with everyone, and thank you to our friends standing behind us, showing everyone at home how awesome the energy is here today. We're taking action with brothers and sisters across the country in dozens of other cities that are standing up to oppose Neil Gorsuch for a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. So I wanted to ask everyone to take out your phones, pull up your social media platform of choice, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and tell your friends and family why you're here today. Please use the hashtag #WeObject to let everyone know why you object to Neil Gorsuch. We're hearing from a lot of amazing activists today about all the reasons that Neil Gorsuch would be a disaster for a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. So please take this moment, send a picture, send a tweet at Donald Trump, let him know that we object and we will not back down without a big fight. Thank you all.
Please welcome ENCHANTA Jackson from BYP 100.
How y'all good people doing today? I'm so glad to be here representing BYP 100, a national organization that has a chapter here in DC. We advocate for racial justice through a Black, queer, feminist lens, and we strongly stand with We Object. Since weaseling his way into office, 45 has nominated nothing but racist, misogynist, and ill-prepared people, one after another. Jeff Sessions was a push. Sessions was a push to close the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. Devos, more concerned about some grizzly bears than actually protecting our children, especially our Black children. She recently said she wants schools to be selected like Ubers and Lyfts. Ubers and Lyfts are not selected. We are appointed an Uber with a surplus charge that is not going to work for our education system. And now Judge Gorsuch, another conservative. He's not legally allowed to tell us how he feels about things, but we can tell through his actions on the Circuit Court of Appeals. We can tell how he feels about our nation's most marginalized communities, especially Black people, and police brutality. As the Senator of Hawaii said, I just want to tell a little story. It's time for story time. I'm gonna give you 2 stories, and it shows exactly how he feels about Black people and exactly how he feels on how police should be interacting with our communities. One story takes place in Colorado. A 22-year-old young man had marijuana. A police officer confronted him. The young man ran. That police officer chased him, grabbed him, and tased him in the head, killing him on spot. Gorsuch decided to protect that police officer, claiming the police officer did not know it was unconstitutional to kill somebody for marijuana by tasing them in the head. My next story takes place in Utah with a 9-year-old who was only 67 pounds. I'm twice that child's size. This child was 67 pounds, and the child took another child's iPad. A police resource officer came in, grabbed that child, and put him in an arm lock as he handcuffed him in school. Gorsuch decided to protect that child, to protect that police officer instead of the child, saying it was the child's fault that the police officer used excessive force. This is how Gorsuch feels police should be interacting with our community. This is how Gorsuch feels that we should be teaching our children right from wrong. It is no coincidence that in less than 100 days, there's been an attack on our Department of Justice. There's been an attack on our education system, an attempt attack on our healthcare system, and now an attack on our last line of defense to uphold our basic human rights. Trump is building a goon squad. Gorsuch is part of that, and they have a destructive agenda. Trump must be stopped. Gorsuch has to be blocked.
Please welcome Candace Ontario from the National LGBTQ Task Force.
Good morning, beautiful people. Thank you so much for coming out here and telling everyone, including those behind here, the senators, that we object. My name is Candace Ontario, and I'm the Reproductive Health Rights and Justice Policy Council for the National LGBTQ Task Force. And as an organization, we object. We understand how important a lifetime position is to the Supreme Court. Lifetime. A 40-year plus term that Judge Gorsuch could have on the Supreme Court. And that is detrimental to all of us who really believe in justice, who believe in the rights of workers over the rights of corporations. And we are here to show that we object and we resist. We know that Judge Gorsuch has ruled terribly for women's reproductive rights and the rights of all people who can become pregnant, including trans folks and gender nonconforming folks who can also become pregnant. We know that Neil Gorsuch is not going to protect transgender rights. And we know that the Supreme Court is going to hear a transgender rights case very soon. And we cannot have someone on the court that is not going to allow someone to go to the restroom that is associated with their gender identity and the way that they express themselves. This is not his choice. This is a personal choice. And we know that, and we have to show our senators that we know that, and we are watching them. We did this with Trump Care, and we have to do it again. We have to call every single day, every hour, tell your friends, tell your mailman, tell your grandmother. They need to call every single day. Even if your senator has already said that they're going to object, we need to make sure that they will still object. And we need to make sure that they still will hold the line and filibuster this appointment, because it is too important. All of our rights depend on it. We are what democracy looks like. What is happening right now in the Supreme Court, in the administration, is not democracy. This is not what democracy looks like. And us standing out here right now, this is resistance. This is democracy. And please just remember that our existence alone is resistance, and we have to continue this fight together. Thank you so much, and continue to object.
Please welcome Patrick Moran, the president of AFSCME Council 3.
Thank you. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for being here to stand up for working men and women all across the United States. As a father and a husband and the president of AFSCME Council 3 in Maryland, I urge the United States Senate to oppose the lifetime appointment to the United States Supreme Court of Neil Gorsuch. He has consistently proven that he only favors the privileged and powerful at the expense of all of us. Judge Gorsuch truly believes that corporations are people, that their rights come before ours. We need an independent justice that will use the Constitution to protect us, protect everyone, not just the powerful and not just the privileged. Based on his record, it is clear that Neil Gorsuch is not the person that time and time again has sided with the powerful and the privileged, that will work against working men and women. We can't afford someone like Neil Gorsuch in the Supreme Court. In the Transcam trucking case, he ruled against the truck driver whose life was in danger when he was stuck in sub-zero temperatures. By siding with the company that fired him for leaving his truck so he could seek shelter and save his own life. He sided with the company. In the Compass environmental case involving a workplace death, Gorsuch even argued that a company should not be responsible for the electrocution of one of their own employees. One of their employees that they did not even train. That worker's name was Chris Carter. And the company was only fined $5,500 for his death. $5,500. Judge Gorsuch thought that that was an overreach. That the $5,500 fine for that man's death was an overreach. And he sided with the company. He ruled against an assistant professor at Kansas State University, Grace Wong, who was fired after 15 years on the job because she needed more time to recover from breast cancer. It was too accommodating for her, to her. It was too much. He was asking too much of the university to give her some more time to recover. In cases involving employee compensation, he has ruled over 90% of the time for the employers. 21 out of 23 cases, he has sided with the employers. We cannot afford a Supreme Court who will tip the scales of justice even further in favor of the wealthy and the powerful. Every day I see our members of our union and dedicated public service employees serve their communities. People like mental health workers, teachers, social workers, bridge inspectors, public safety officers. I see their work and it means a lot to them and it means a lot to their communities and their neighbors, such as you. If you've put in an honest day's work, served your community, and really listened to the concerns and struggles of hardworking Americans, then you know corporations are not people. We don't need another corporate flunky on the Supreme Court. We've heard a lot of this election, in this last election, about the forgotten man. Well, we see that Judge Gorsuch has forgotten the working women and working men of this country time and time again. We need a Supreme Court that respects the 99%, not a judge that sides with the 1% 99% of the time. America needs justice, and there will be no justice, there will be no peace with Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. Thank you.
Please welcome Emily Tish Sussman from the Center for American Progress.
Hey, everybody! Hey! I'm Emily from the Center for American Progress, and this is Dean. My good. Oh, it's a really great welcome. This is his first rally. Yes, good looking welcome. But I don't want you guys to think that he's been slacking in his 7.5 months of life. He phone banked, he knocked doors, Don't think he's just been sitting around on his white male privilege. He gets to work. He gets to work. Yes. Well, look, I don't know. I don't know what Dean's future is going to hold. I don't know what kind of protections he's going to need. I don't know if he's going to need access to a safe and legal abortion. And this court, with Gorsuch on it, will not protect him. I don't know if he's going to need access to bathrooms. This court will not protect him. I don't know if he's going to need IDEA protections in education. I don't know if he's going to be able to access the marriage, to be able to marry who he loves. This court with Gorsuch on it will not protect him. We need to stop it. And we can. Look, and not just on every issue which Gorsuch is wrong, and we know every issue which Gorsuch is wrong. But why are we here in the first place? Why are we letting a president who won't even tell us what his ties are to Russia and to how much they interfere with the election? Why is the Senate pushing through this confirmation? This makes no sense. The Senate, time and time again, has said, look, we don't need a full investigation into Russia. We can just band-aid it over. Well, you know what we can push through? We can push through this nomination. That's right, Dean. That's right. That makes no sense. Okay, so we're gonna try something here. We want the Senate to hear it, all right? It's a little complicated, but I feel good about this crowd. Ready? So we're gonna say, if there is no Russia probe, there is no SCOTUS robe. All right, so we're gonna try it. So I'm gonna say no Russia probe, and you guys give me the SCOTUS. Ready? No Russia probe. No SCOTUS probe. No Russia probe. No SCOTUS probe. No Russia probe. No SCOTUS probe. All right, you guys are a great crowd. I know the Senate's gonna hear you.
Please welcome ISAIAS GUERRERO from the Center for Community Change with the Immigration Campaign.
All right, how's everybody doing? Are we feeling the power this morning? Are we feeling the people power? When I say people, you say power. People! 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 That's right. That's why we're here today. And this is only the beginning of democracy uplifting and showing the real side of justice. My name is ISAIAS GUERRERO, and I'm an organizer with the Fair Immigration Reform Movement, which is a campaign for the Center for Community Change. Yes, thank you. We are a coalition of 44 organizations across the US that fight every day for immigrant rights. I came from Colombia 16 years ago to live in Indiana, the Hoosier state. Hoosier hospitality is what it's known for. I experienced it up until my dad was arrested and almost deported because of things that he couldn't carry because of being an immigrant parent. He had to work 12-hour days, assembling radios. He was very stressed, he didn't know the language, and he had 5 stomachs to feed. The stress took him to take decisions that got him in jail, and that's the moment that I had to decide whether I was gonna be okay with him being deported or not. And I took the decision that no matter what happens, no one should be deported, because already we're suffering so much by being jailed and by having laws against immigrants all throughout the US. As I saw the pain in my father's eyes when he was getting the shackles and being put in the police car, I got reminded just this past week when I went to Alabama to work with the Alabama Coalition for Immigrant Justice to stand with 40 families who suffered from a raid in northern Alabama. I was sitting in a living room hearing a mother's story of how immigration came, they almost broke down the door, and they took her loved one away. She called in that moment, and she was talking with her son, reminding him to continue singing the SpongeBob song even if he wasn't able to sing it with him, because one day he was gonna return home. I could not tell this little one and reassure him that his dad was gonna come home. No 11-year-old should have to go through this. where he's wondering when his dad is gonna come back so that he can continue singing, can continue living a life of dignity in this country. And that's what we're facing right now. These executive orders on enforcement are unjust and are not only gonna create so that instead of 34,000 people being jailed every day, we're gonna see 70,000 immigrants being jailed every day. And is that right? That's not right. And that's why we're here today. Because we're here to tell this administration that we're not gonna stand still. That the mantle of justice, we're gonna take it and we're gonna wrap ourselves around it and try to get as many people in the US under it so that we uphold the laws and the Constitution. We've seen continuous violation of search and seizure by immigration, customs, and enforcement when they came to and have done all these raids all across the country. Is that right? No. Is that the America that we love? No. That's why this is the beginning of a movement. This is the beginning of a moment where we're gonna go into our communities. We're gonna go into our kitchen tables and invite our brothers and sisters who are LGBT, Muslim, African Americans, and that continue to keep suffering from these unjust policies. We're gonna organize, we're gonna make sure that all our neighbors are gonna go out and vote in these elections, and we're gonna make sure that we tell people in the Senate Judiciary and in the Senate to not let Gorsuch continue this anti-democratic agenda. ¿Sí o no? ¿Sí se puede? ¿Sí se puede? ¿Sí se puede? Last one, ready? I'm gonna say undocumented, unafraid. Friends and allies, unafraid. Undocumented, unafraid. Friends and allies, unafraid. Undocumented, unafraid. Friends and allies, unafraid. Thank you so much.
Let's hear it for ILYSE HOGUE, the president of NARAL.
So you've heard the personal stories. You've heard the issues that we know a Gorsuch court, thank you, Rosie, a Gorsuch court will rule on. By the time that Gorsuch would be retiring from the court, this little girl is likely to be 35 to 40 years old. He will shape her life. He will shape the life of undocumented children in this country, of black children in this country, of Latino children in this country. The stakes are too high. When we started this campaign, we were told it was unwinnable. We were told he's a nice guy. He's credentialed. Credentialed just means he's a white guy in a suit with the Ivy League education, so nobody should look at his record. We've looked at his record. We object to his record. And we now have 35 senators committed to objecting with us. We need 6 more in the next 5 days. We're gonna do it. So I hope everyone leaves here fired up, knows that there are crowds gathering as we speak in Miami, in Cleveland, in Las Vegas, in Denver, and tell all of your friends to call all of their senators and say, we object to Gorsuch, and if you can't get to 60, you don't change the rules, you change the nominee. You all are beautiful. It's been such an honor to be part of this resistance. Thank you so much and have a great day.